Have you ever stopped to think about why the legendary off-road vehicle is called a Jeep? It's one of the most recognizable names the automotive world has ever known, short, sharp, and impossible to forget. The moment you hear the word Jeep, images come to mind: a tough, squared-off machine crawling over rocks, charging through mud, or powering across harsh military terrain. But how did such a unique name come into existence? Was it an abbreviation, a military code, or pure chance? The origin of the Jeep name is a remarkable blend of wartime necessity, soldier slang, pop culture influence, and smart branding. Today, we're taking a deep dive into how the name Jeep was born, a word that began almost casually, turned into a nickname, and eventually became a worldwide icon. To truly understand the name, we need to travel back to the late 1930s and early 1940s, a period when global tensions were rising and World War II was approaching fast. The US Army urgently needed a new kind of vehicle, lightweight, rugged, and capable of handling almost any terrain. It had to be compact, quick, dependable, and versatile enough for scouting missions and troop transport. In 1940, the Army issued a request to numerous automobile manufacturers, asking them to submit designs that met extremely strict requirements. Most companies declined the challenge, but a few stepped forward. Among them were the American Bantam Car Company, Willys Overland, and Ford. Bantam was the first to deliver a working prototype, known as the Bantam Reconnaissance Car, or BRC. The design impressed military officials, but Bantam faced a major problem: it simply couldn't produce enough vehicles at the scale required for wartime deployment. As a result, Willys and Ford were brought in to improve the design and manufacture it in large numbers. From this joint effort came the Willys MB, a compact four-wheel drive vehicle that would soon gain worldwide fame. At the time, however, it didn't yet have a memorable name. Officially, the Army referred to it using technical labels such as the 1/4 ton 4x for reconnaissance truck or by its government code, G503. These formal titles were practical on paper, but soldiers rarely used them in everyday conversation. Instead, they began giving the vehicle informal nicknames, and this is where the story takes an interesting turn. Out of all the names circulating among troops, one began to stand out: Jeep. So where did that nickname really come from? The truth is, there's no single, definitive answer. Instead, several theories overlap and connect in intriguing ways. One of the most commonly repeated explanations traces the name back to military abbreviations. During the 1930s and 1940s, soldiers and mechanics often referred to vehicles using letter codes, including a GP. According to popular belief, the G stood for government and the P for general purpose, and when spoken quickly, GP supposedly evolved into Jeep. It's a simple and logical idea, especially considering how heavily the military relied on shorthand. However, there's a problem with this explanation. In reality, the P did not mean purpose at all. Instead, it identified a specific vehicle classification in Ford's internal coding system. That means the GP origin story, while appealing, is largely a myth that gained popularity after the name was already in use. Another explanation reaches further back into Army culture itself. Even before the Willys MB existed, the word Jeep was already part of US military slang. At the time, soldiers used Jeep to describe anything new, untested, or unfamiliar, whether it was equipment or a freshly enlisted recruit who hadn't yet proven themselves. It was essentially another way of saying rookie or new guy. When the Willys MB appeared, it represented an entirely new kind of vehicle. Soldiers may have naturally referred to it as the new Jeep, meaning the latest experimental machine. Over time, that slang term became permanently attached to the vehicle, transforming from casual talk into its official identity. There's also a fun and unexpected pop culture connection. In 1936, a character was introduced in the Popeye comic strip named Eugene the Jeep. Eugene was a small, mysterious creature with extraordinary abilities. He could move through walls, squeeze into impossible spaces, and travel between dimensions. He was described as a magical being from the fourth dimension, capable of going anywhere and doing anything. For soldiers familiar with the comic, the comparison was impossible to ignore. The military vehicle they were driving seemed to share the same qualities as Eugene: compact, clever, and unstoppable in places where nothing else could go. And just like that, fiction and reality blended together, helping cement the name Jeep in history. Sound familiar? For soldiers who grew up reading the Popeye comics, the similarities were impossible to ignore. The small cartoon creature named Eugene the Jeep could go anywhere and overcome any obstacle, and so could the compact military vehicle they were driving. Before long, troops began casually referring to their all-terrain machine as a Jeep, inspired directly by the comic character. The nickname spread rapidly, especially after a Washington, D.C. journalist named Catherine Hillier published an article in 1941 that referred to the new military vehicle as a Jeep, a term that soldiers were already using in everyday conversation. That single article helped push the name beyond military slang and into the public spotlight. From that moment on, the name was locked in. As World War II intensified, Jeep became the universal term used by American troops across every front. The vehicle came to represent American creativity, durability, and determination. It proved its worth everywhere, cutting through deep mud, powering across snow and sand, navigating jungles, and surviving conditions that would stop most machines. General Dwight D. Eisenhower later famously stated that the Jeep, alongside the CA-47 transport plane and landing craft, was one of the 3 critical tools that helped secure victory in the war. When the fighting ended, Willis Overland quickly realized the vehicle's potential went far beyond the battlefield. The company secured the Jeep trademark and introduced civilian versions of the vehicle, known as the CJ, or civilian Jeep. What was once a wartime utility machine evolved into a trusted off-road partner for farmers, explorers, workers, and adventurers across the globe. Today, Jeep is far more than just an automotive brand, it's an idea. It stands for strength, independence, and the freedom to explore. A name that began as military slang and comic strip humor has grown into a symbol of pride, carried by vehicles that still reflect their rugged wartime roots. Even in a modern world, the meaning behind the word Jeep hasn't changed. Go anywhere. Take on anything. Never back down. It's remarkable that a word casually spoken by soldiers became one of the most legendary names in automotive history. So why is it called a Jeep? Because the truth isn't tied to a single explanation, it's a blend of military language, pop culture, battlefield experience, and human creativity. And that blend is exactly what makes the name unforgettable. Jeep wasn't born in a boardroom or crafted by marketers. It emerged from real-world use, shared humor, and the need for a machine people could depend on with their lives. From the muddy battlefields of the 1940s to today's highways and off-road trails, the Jeep name has always stood for one thing: unstoppable capability. Thank you for watching. If you have ideas for our next video, let us know in the comments below, we'd love to hear from you.